Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Point of Life podcast. I'm Rev Ray, and thought today we would continue on our exploration of your spiritual anatomy. In previous episodes, we looked at the chakras and the aura, the placement of the chakras, the information in each one, the physiological reaction the body has on each chakra level. We talked about the 7 layers of the aura and how that helps to, or that tells us what you're creating in your life. And then we also had a episode on the spiritual development of a incarnate being, looking at what happens on a spiritual level prior to birth, through pregnancy, the birthing process, the toddler years, the infant years, the toddler years, the child years, the young adult years, as the body and brain grow and, develop in their functions, then what's happening on a spiritual level. We take it all the way through basically the 7 life cycles, 7-year life cycles, and with death and moving out of the body. So today I thought we'd continue our exploration of your spiritual anatomy. Today's episode is going to be on identity and ego. Yay, ego. Always a fun topic to discuss with other spiritually minded people. But first, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself. As I said, I'm Reverend Ray Moore, and I am a minister of spiritual counseling and divine healing. Been ordained since 1988. I've always been spiritually inclined. I was not what I would consider a psychic child. I didn't see colors around people, but I was really good telepathically. And when I was about 7 years old, my dad was a Sunday school teacher. I grew up in an Episcopal church. Dad was a Sunday school teacher. Mom was on the altar guild, so they were quite involved with the church. And one day after Sunday school, Dad taught Sunday school, and the lesson was on Jesus teaching in the temple as a small child. And on the way home, I asked my dad, how old was Jesus when they told him that he was the Son of God? Dad said, well, I guess it was about 7, maybe 9 years old. And that night I remember laying in bed wondering, because I was about 7, I wonder if I'm the Son of God, they just haven't told me yet. And so that was kind of the basis of my search. So through my, what do they call it, pre-teenage years, my adolescent years, I dabbled with crystals, I dabbled with tarot, I dabbled with runes, I dabbled with Ouija boards, all those fun game-like spiritual divination tools. And so fast forward, I was in my 20s and still interested. I was reading the Seth material. I was reading, gosh, what was I reading back then? Elizabeth Clare Prophet. If you haven't heard of those authors, you might want to look them up sometime. It's fantastic information. But I was always searching, and I had spiritual events throughout my life. And when I was about 27, I was at a point where I was working in the family business, and I knew that it was not what I wanted to do. I knew that my purpose was greater than that. I decided to pick up my guitar, get in my car, and drive across country, see if I can support myself singing in bars and saloons and restaurants. And that was the plan. I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area. That's where I grew up, in the East Bay. And one day I told my dad about my plan. I said, I think I'd like to go cross country, see if I can play my way across the country. And he said, well, why don't you go to the family cabin? Have you ever had one of those moments where the big light bulb goes off? Bing! That's it. That's what I'm supposed to do. Spent 3 or 4 months up at the cabin. And it was, March, April, May, and then June I started coming back to the Bay Area. I was playing in bar bands on the weekends, and so I'd go up on Sunday afternoons to the cabin and come back on Friday mornings so we can play gigs on Friday night and Saturday. And then I'd head back up. And one day I had my calling. It was a visitation from the Christ, and that was pretty wild. I asked, what am I supposed to do? And the Christ said, go back to the Bay Area. There's something waiting for you there. And this started a domino effect of serendipitous events in my life, culminating with a broken collarbone, and a back spasm that I discussed in another episode. I was laid up for about 6 weeks for healing. I did a lot of driving. At that time, I was working for a light bulb company selling full spectrum lighting, which led me to the work of John Ott. He developed the time-lapse photography for Disney shorts, God's Half Acre. He would show flowers blossoming, or just time-lapse photography. And he was really into light and how it affected the body and how it affected the pineal gland, which is buried in the middle of the brain, also the home of the 6th chakra, your inner sight, your clear seeing, clairvoyance. Anyway, so I was recovered and meeting the right people at the right time. I met this one woman. We started dating. I was telling her about my experiences. She said, you need to go to the Berkeley Psychic Institute. And I thought, wow, there's a place where you can learn how to do this? So back then I had a bit of a spiritual ego. I thought I was hot shit. I couldn't move mountains. Telekinesis didn't work all that well. But I found it, and I remember calling the Institute to find out when the next meditation class was starting. And being this hotshot who's been reading all these books, called the Institute, and I wanted to say something smart-assy, but I found myself being totally grounded and saying, I'd like to develop my abilities. And the person that answered the phone was a woman named Hannah Jane. She was my first meditation teacher. Hannah was a fantastic human being, and wouldn't take shit from anybody. She was a tough psychic. So I spent a total of 17 years at the Berkeley Psychic Institute, training myself and training others, studying and teaching. I had a teaching ministry there. I went through the clairvoyant program, 18 months at that time, and graduated on September 11th, 1988. The next day, I was on a spiritual pilgrimage with 87 other psychics through Europe. It was the Inquisition Trail. One of the fun things that happened during my, I think it was my first meditation class, Med 1 or Med 2, somebody asked Hannah Jane, well, if Jesus was psychic, then where in the Bible does it say so? And she said, you know, all of the tools that we teach here are in the Bible, you just have to go find them. And that lit me up wonderfully. And after the pilgrimage, came back, did the Ministers in Training program. Over a period of time, went through the Christian Education Teachers program, learning how to be a minister, how to run a church, blah, blah, blah. And the training was, during the clairvoyant training, it was 2 readings a week. When we graduated, we could do 1 reading a week, but we're always welcome to do 2. For me, it was full immersion. I'd do a Monday night healing clinic, read on Tuesday nights, go to class on Wednesday night. Thursday night was the men's fellowship, spiritual mechanic classes pertaining to a male body. By the end of my run there, 17 years later, I was serving as the regent of ministerial training and the dean of the ministers training program and the regent of Christian education for the Church of Divine Man, which was the Berkeley Psychic Institute is the seminary workshop for the Church of Divine Man. So after 17 years, I found my freedom from religion. Make a long story short, there was never a dull moment in those 17 years, to tell you that. Quite a few miracles came out of that, and maybe those stories I'll tell you later on. But yeah, and then after that, I pursued studying the Course in Miracles, the Jesuit Ascension meditations. I had study groups in the Course of Miracles and conversations with God, and those study groups were a lot of fun. It allowed me to take really complex spiritual mechanics and explain them in a very simple way. So I did that for a while and moved around here, there, everywhere. Had my dark night of the soul when I moved to Atlanta 3 years after moving to North Carolina. From there, I worked in New Jersey, the Philadelphia area, for a few years. Didn't like the North. Got a job in Charleston, South Carolina. Found a great spiritual community there, which was really interesting. When I moved from California after leaving the church, I moved to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and within 2 weeks, I was deeply entrenched in the spiritual community there. It was really neat. Went to New Jersey and really didn't do much of anything. I just kind of took a breath. I was still healing myself from the dark night of the soul. After a few years there, moved to Charleston, doing my laundry at the laundromat. One morning, they had the local paper, like the Dollar Saver, that kind of thing. And in the back, there was an ad for a meditation class at the Bridge Avalon. I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. I think I'm going to go over there. They had a Monday night meditation, and so I went and enjoyed myself. The founder, director, owner A woman by the name of Janine Clemens told me to stick around afterwards. She wanted to talk to me. I gave her my brief history, and she gave me her brief history. We had a karmic connection. She allowed me to start teaching there. I did a series on why we get stuck and different topics every week. I did a lot of the Monday night meditations. Offered my meditation classes. I teach and preach. Well, I preach the kingdom of heaven is within, and I teach how to enter into the kingdom through meditation and prayer. And it's an in-the-body meditation style. A lot of meditation styles will have you go out of the body, hit nirvana, come back in, but that's not really the point of it. I recognize the Bible as the spiritual handbook for the body. It's written for, about, and by spirit, and everything you need to know about being a being in a body, a spiritual being in a physical body, it's in there. So I don't really get into a lot of the theology in meditation. It's more about experiencing. So, yeah, and so when I was living in Charleston, my wife and I were planning our wedding. I came home one day and she said, "Do you realize how big the wedding industry is in Charleston?" I said, "No." She says, it's ranked as the #1 destination wedding place in the United States. It goes back and forth between Charleston and Las Vegas. And I think Charleston is less of a gamble. So she said, you can officiate, you're still ordained, right? And I said, yeah, that's not something that goes away. So April 4th of 2016, performed my first wedding as a licensed officiant in South Carolina. We just did number 435. So that was a 10-year run. Still do it. I'm now dabbling in that. I'm not really pursuing that as much as I did before. My focus now is on presenting these podcasts, teaching about spiritual mechanics. Hopefully I'll get my website up and running where I can put in meditations that you can listen to, classes you can sign up for, that kind of thing. So that's who I am. That's the identity I want you to see when you come to these videos. It's been quite a life. But I'm more than that. I'm a husband. I'm a stepfather. I'm a relocation consultant. I'm a musician. I've got lots of hats. A landscaper, because we have too much property to let it go to weeds. But yes, so getting back to our topic, identity and ego. So I just gave you my identity. That's who I am. Your identity is not something that is given to you when you're born. It's something that grows. The ego is something that is given to you when you're born. We'll get more into the ego later. And as far as the identity goes, you come out of the womb, they slap you on the bottom, they tie the umbilical cord, and you breathe and you begin your life in a body. And our first identity in this lifetime is our body. And it's also, we identify with our primary caregiver, which is typically mom. I have a relationship with this woman who was there when I came out. She must be my mom. Oh, I'm me, that's her. So yes, the identity is formed after birth, but the ego comes with the soul into the body and the spiritual being. Identity is really a conglomerate of your history, your story, where you live, how you live, what you do. It begins with your name. When you are born, you are given a name, and your name is your spiritual identity this lifetime. I'll say that again. Your name is your spiritual identity this lifetime, and it's also the address of your body. Think about that. Your name has a lot of the identity built in it. Some of the things that come along with your name that forms your identity would be nicknames, your corporate name, usually given when you apply for a Social Security number. Your corporate name is your name in all caps. So if you ever get any legal mail and the name is all caps, then that's corporate. If it's in capital, first initial capital, and then lowercase, the rest of your name, that's business or social. Bank accounts are in your name. Credit cards are in your name. Titles: Reverend Ray, Dr. Doolittle, Professor Smith, PhD, MBA, all those letters that come before or after a name. That's all part of your identity too. It says something about you. Your phone number is your identity. Now this could change. I think I've had 1, 2, 3, 4, I think I'm on my 5th phone number. 6th phone number if you count the phone number at home. 510, 537. Your email address is part of your identity. Any pseudonyms you go by. Anything you identify with as part of your identity. Now your identity is quite flexible. Your identity can change from day to day should you want to. If you identify in your career, my name is Ray and I do this. This is who I am. That's one identity. But then when it's time to go on vacation and you relax, you let that identity back off, hopefully, and rest and recuperate and look at your next step. So your identity can easily change, though sometimes identity with anything that you have a long-term relationship with, it can keep you from changing your identity. Okay, I was the youngest at the time I was the youngest licensed dry cleaner in the state of California. I don't know if that record still holds. I was 18 most of the people that were going for their tests were in their 30s and 40s. So it's you identify with your family, one way or the other. Where you live, your home, relationships, and the identity. Some of the most stressful situations in life deal with a change of identity. A new job. You may have the knowledge of how to perform the job, but it's a completely different company with a completely different set of politics, culture. It might even be in a different area than your previous job. I mean, as far as towns, moving is a very stressful situation because you're changing your identity in locations. You don't know how much you identify with your home until you move out of it. I remember moving to Atlanta and going grocery shopping at Harris Teeter, not being able to find anything, and having a meltdown because I didn't know where anything was and I didn't know who I was there. So, that can be a very stressful thing, but it can also be a very exciting thing. Hey, we're going to move to Charleston. Oh boy, let's go. Families can change. You can welcome new people into the family, husbands, wives, children, brothers-in-law, sisters-in-law, stepfathers, stepmothers, aunts, uncles. And when the family dynamics changes because one or two people have left, that can be a very stressful thing, trying to reorient your identity into a new situation. Relationships. When you meet someone for the first time and sparks fly and butterflies in the stomach, head spinning, you have all these chemical reactions in the body, all these pictures light up, perfect pictures of the perfect person. That changes your identity too. And ending a relationship can change your identity. If a couple has been together for an extraordinarily long amount of time, and their identity is so tied in with one another that when one of them dies, the other one might die too. I'm sure you've heard of stories about this couple was in their 90s. They've been married for 70 years. She died. 3 days later, he died. And actually, that's what happened with my maternal grandparents. His grandma died, and about a month later, Grandpa followed her. And that was a tremendous hit on my mom. Well, I was only 3 at the time, so it didn't really affect me. They just weren't around anymore. I hadn't really identified with them yet on a real personal bonding. But so it could be very, very stressful when you have to change your identity because of circumstances, or when your identity changes because of your circumstances. You hit the lottery, your identity is going to change. You win $1 million and then 6 months later you're bankrupt because you didn't have the capacity to handle that money, and you couldn't identify as being a millionaire, so you lose it all. So, identities will pass away, and perspectives change depending on friends, relationships, organizations, politics, all these social programs that we have in our lives. But basically, identity is how you see yourself. Now, the ego can see these changes, these stressful life changes, as positive. Got a new job. Look at me. I'm Billy Badass. Finally got that position. Yes. Boy, this is the relationship I've been waiting for all my life. I am complete now. And finally, we're going to get out of an apartment. I'm going to become a homeowner. Oh boy, I'm hot shit. So, the ego will deem things as positive and negative. But how you see yourself is tied not only to your ego, but also to your identity. And your identity shifts. So, the ego and identity, I see them as two sides to the same coin. Where the identity isn't given to us at birth, the ego is. And cruising down the spiritual path, I've met a lot of people who have the same question. If the ego always gets in the way of me knowing myself, then what good is it? How do I get rid of it? What's it for? Why do I need an ego? Why did God even give us an ego? Well, you can't fulfill your purpose in life without it. I think we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, give yourself a deep breath. That was a lot. Notice if you are lit up or not. And if you are lit up, just breathe, round. Imagine a cord of energy going from the base of your spine all the way down to the center of the planet. Follow it all the way down, plug it into the center of the planet, and just take a few deep breaths. Relax, and let go of anything that is lit up. So, when one is, we're just going to finish up on identity before we get into the ego. When one identifies themselves as a body that has a spirit, life is going to happen to them. And when one identifies themselves as a spirit that has a body, life has a propensity of happening through them. So life is either happening to you or life is happening through you. And the difference is your orientation and your identity as a spiritual being in a body, or a body that has a being. Okay. It's where culture shock comes from as well, when you move to a different area of the country. I'm a 6th generation Californian, and I moved to North Carolina, and for about 6 months, people were saying to me, "You ain't from around here, are you?" And I thought it was a validation at first, but I later found out that it wasn't. So the ego. The ego is a condition. The ego is like rust on an iron skillet. Ego is dualistic, either or. Spirit is union, one oneness. When the body is birthed, it comes with an ego and a soul. Now the soul holds all the memories of everything that has ever happened to that spirit that is coming into the body. And we need an ego and we need an ego to fulfill our purpose. So what is the purpose of the ego? Excuse me. Well, it's story time. Once upon no time and no space, all that is all that is. And all that is knew that itself to be all that is, because there was nothing that was not all that is. And all that is could know itself to be all that is, but it couldn't experience itself as all that is, because there was nothing that was not all that is. And if we didn't have high, there wouldn't know what low is. We didn't. If everybody had the same amount of money in the world, we wouldn't know what rich was. We wouldn't know what poor was. So all that is wanted to create something that it was not. And this was not an easy task for all that is, because when you're all that is, what else is there? Nothing. And all that is had this brilliant idea of extending itself, creating an extension of itself that knew nothing. Ignorance. And when all that is said hello to that which it was not, ignorance, the Big Bang occurred, and the universe was born. And with that, there was now, from this extension perspective, there was this and that. There was here and there, and the space in between that was neither this or that. And it could say hello to itself and say hello to the Creator, and you can measure the interval that it took to go through that space between here and there. And that is time. It took time. So this is the major function, the primary function of the ego. The primary function of the ego is to provide for the illusion of separation. All that is oneness. And this mechanism, that's the mechanism of the soul, is in two-ness. Okay? So you can't be here in this earthly realm without an ego, because it provides for the illusion of separation. I'm over here, you're over there, Those people over there are over there. Now that we have space and time, we have memory. We can remember what happened just a few minutes ago. Okay? Does that make sense? Can you hear that? Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think about that. So, the primary function of the ego is to provide for the illusion of separation. And because we have this illusion of separation, we have here, there, and the space in between, which is neither here nor there. And we have time. Time and space are functions of the ego. If you didn't have an ego, you'd be back in the oneness. But you're not. You're sitting here watching this or listening. So we have the illusion of separation. We have time and space. We have memory because of that. Because if everything was happening in no time, no space, there would be nothing to memorize. There'd be nothing to have a memory of. It simply is. And so because of this memory thing, we have association. I remember this, I remember that. Oh, and I didn't know about this over here, but because of this experience, I can figure out what this is over there. So, we've got memory. Memory is a... If memory were a computer, then the identity is a plug-in to that computer. It's a program. And the program can change, the ego's not going to. Now, those are the functions of the ego. The ego can and has become dysfunctional. Because as I said in other episodes, one of the functions of the ego is to take the data that's coming in from an experience and deciding if it's positive or negative. And it associates things with different experiences with other experiences, and it builds a memory. Your life has been memorized. So what the ego deems as positive, it will draw to it. It will attract that. What the ego deems as negative, it will repel from itself. Okay? What the ego is neutral to, because we now have positive and negative and neutral, something that is neither positive or negative, it pays no mind. Okay? Any questions about that? Because these are really complex mechanics that are simplified. Trying to make it as simple as possible so that you can grasp this. Where ego will see every situation as either or, when you have to make a choice, it has to be either this or that. Spirit will look at it and say both and more. Okay? oneness, spirit, there is no separation. Two-ness, the ego, because we have separation, seemingly, it's either or. Either or, both and. So when a situation comes up in life where we have to make a decision, it's either this way or that way. Well, that's ego thinking. But through meditation, you can look at that same situation and get a both and. Now, let's go on a different tact here. And I wish I had pictures. Maybe I'll add pictures to this up in this little space right here. But imagine a one-cell organism, an amoeba. It has a nucleus, it has the cell, and then it has the cell wall. Okay? Everything on the inside of that cell wall is the amoeba. Everything outside of that cell wall is not the amoeba. A tree has bark. Okay? Everything outside of the bark is not the tree. Everything inside the bark is the tree. All right? Following? Pretty simple, right? Okay. The body has skin. It's the largest organ in the body. Skin. Everything inside of the skin is the body. Everything outside of the skin is not the body. As above, so below. Everything in the material world is created on a spiritual level first. Therefore, we can look at the ego and consider it as the natural boundary of the soul. Okay? I was once asked, well, where does the ego reside? Well, it doesn't really reside anywhere, but it resides everywhere. Again, it's a condition. It's like the foam on the wave of an ocean. There's really not much to it. It's like rust on a cast iron skillet, or anything that's rusty. It's like rust. It's really not a part of whatever it's clinging to, but it is a part of whatever it's clinging to. In the body, there's part of your spiritual anatomy is a thing called the pain sheath. The pain sheath runs just underneath the skin in the fascia. That's the layer between the skin and the muscles, and it's where a lot of the nerve endings are. That's your pain sheath. So your chi flows naturally through the pain sheath. And when that flow is interrupted, like that, we experience a little pain. What's the first thing you do when you stub a toe, stub your shin on the coffee table, bump into a wall, fall down, go boom? The first tendency is to rub wherever you just hurt. Get stung by a mosquito. Oh man, it itches. What we're trying to do there is we're trying to get the chi to flow back through there and end that gap. Okay? On a spiritual level, the outside edge of the aura has this thing called the pain ridge. The pain ridge. And it's where we keep a lot of memories of self-preservation. Okay? When there's a lot of pain in that pain ridge and in the pain sheath, the ego is there to tell us that it's there to protect us from the pain. But it didn't do a very good job of keeping the pain out in the first place. You look at a person with a huge ego. I'll give you a second to think of someone. Huge ego. That person has a lot of pain in their pain ridge. You look at a person with a very small ego or a very functional ego. It doesn't get in the way. It's not bossy or bitchy, or they'll have a very light pain ridge. So the more pain, the greater the ego. That's the dysfunctional ego. It's there to say, I'm here to protect you from the pain, but it didn't do a very good job of letting go of it. So when one is on the spiritual path, when they're meditating, doing perhaps Tai Chi, dance, name it, any kind of yoga, being a whirling dervish, whatever type of modality, Reiki, whatever type of modality a person is practicing in the spiritual arts, they're naturally going to release a lot of the pain, because a lot of the pain that a person holds in their aura and in their space isn't their pain. It's not their pain. It's an experience that happened to someone else that they associated with. My definition of suffering, like suffer the children unto me, taking on for the comfort of another. That's suffering. That's suffrage. Taking on for the comfort of another. So you might know someone who has taken on a lot of suffering for other people in their life, and they just can't do it anymore. And so they sit down, they ground, they start releasing, they start working through that. And meditation is kind of like peeling an onion. You're going to go layer by layer by layer. You know, first you start with the static electricity, you release that. That's just junk energy you pick up in your travels through the day. And then you let go of the other people's energy that you interacted with that day, or that week, or that month, or that year, that you're constantly with. And then you get down to the pain levels. And this is where a lot of people stop meditating. They stop going through yoga, they stop going to Reiki, they just stop, they're on their path. Which is fine. They can take a break, let it settle down, let it loosen up, go back to it. Been there, done that. So the ego is also a mechanism of the autoimmune system. The autoimmune system is regulated by the hypothalamus gland, which is in the sternum of the chest, which correlates on a spiritual level with the fourth chakra. Your fourth chakra is your affinity levels, your body being communication, your ability to experience oneness, your ability to have affinity for yourself or for others. It's one of the aspects of love. The other aspects of love are communication and reality. Feeling it, saying it, expressing it. So you can see how the ego can get kind of a bad rap because you take on other people's pain and you take on other people's programming and other people's rules or regulations. They don't work for you, but you have to comply with them to be a good person, which affects your identity. And the ego will remember everything along with the soul. One of the functions of the soul is to keep a memory of everything that has ever happened to you. Now, a lot of that is filtered out at birth when you go through the veil of forgetfulness. Why do we forget? Why do we forget what we've done in our past lives? Why do we forget who we've been and what we've done? Well, because at birth the brain just isn't fully capable enough to handle all that responsibility, all the pride, all the guilt, all the love. It's too undeveloped yet. But as we grow and grow up, and the feeling self comes fully into it, the reasoning self comes into it, the higher self comes into it. We discussed this in the previous episode. The rest starts to go away. The foam on the wave of the ocean starts to dissolve. The ego is really nothing. There's really nothing to it. It will deem things as positive, negative, whatever it's not attracted or repelled from, it's neutral to. And so the way to heal the ego, I guess that's a good word for it, a good way of healing the ego is by developing your neutrality. And your neutrality is right here in the center of your head, in your sixth chakra. This is the perspective you can gain and where you can look at anything and see the truth of the matter, as long as you're neutral enough to see it. And even looking at it and judging it, that's part of the ego's job, is judging. Spirit does not judge. Spirit has no memory. I was once asked, what's the difference between the spirit and the soul? Which is a really great question. Well, the example I came up with is, imagine you're a car. Just imagine a car, any kind of vehicle. Maybe the one you're driving, maybe the one you want to drive. I don't care. Or your favorite one that you crashed and burned years ago. Anyway, the car is like the body. The driver is like the soul. It can get in, crank it, put it in gear, get it around, move it around, go wherever it wants. The spirit is the fuel that drives the car. Whether it be gas, electric, hybrid, diesel, hydrogen, there's a fuel that allows the car to be driven. Another example is, imagine a glove. The glove is like the body. The soul is the hand that fits into the glove. And the spirit is the life force that allows you to move. It's the neurological signals from the brain down the arm to the hand to make it open and close. And does that make sense? Okay. Well, that's a lot, wouldn't you think? I'm sure this has brought up a lot of questions for you. Please feel free to put them in the comments. Like and share this video if you know of anybody who might enjoy listening to me babble on. Babylon? I haven't been to Babylon since my 37th lifetime. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. And we'll see where we take it next. All right? Have a great day. Blessed be, and go with God.